Now, next week they'll have something better, but, this was it, because so they somehow yanked it off the supply chain. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of little organizations like district, I mean, you know, so for them to, I mean, then there's still a money making thing there for them, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
But we
Why
got the
not?
benefit.
all righty.
Okay, so we did the work.
All righty, let's call this meeting to order, the Duluth Community Services District Engineering Meeting. Let's begin with roll call. Robert's here. Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Very good, thank you. Jessica, do we have any public comments, visitors? No. Okay, thank you. Item C, which is the minutes, approval of the January 11th, 2022 minutes. Any comments, changes? Mr. Bowman, anything?
No, no changes.
No changes either for Roberts. Okay, so approved. All righty, moving along very smartly here. Item number D, Sandia Creek Via Vaquero Culvert Repair Project. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor. Turn the chair.
Change places.
Change, but, well, actually Ron's gonna,
I know, but then you two can see each other and the camera will pick you
Nice.
up. I'll take my seat back, please.
And I'm here, Dave.
I've seen Ron for, 20 years.
He'll recognize your back.
Yeah, he will, he will. Okay, Ron, why don't you run through the slideshow?
All right, I'm gonna.
Although we just went out and saw it, but it's, you did it, so you just wandered through.
All right, so I'm not sure, I'm hoping everyone can see the screen. I'm not sure what you guys are looking at, but I'm gonna start sharing now. All right, can everybody see the
Yep.
PowerPoint right
Yeah, we
now?
can see it.
All right, perfect. So, all right, welcome to the committee meeting. Glad to see everybody here and back in the office. And I know that you guys just got back from a site visit out there, so hopefully you saw the real progress of the project. But I'm gonna go through kind of where we are at in the construction phase. So here is just the working day statements. And as you can see, the main things I'd like to draw your attention to right here, the actual completion date per the contract is this March 4th date. And it shows that they, they still have 10 working days here remaining, 20 working days, sorry, to complete the contract. So that is the actual date per the contract with all the rain delays added in. The good news is they are well ahead of that schedule, as you can see from the progress that you saw out there. Right now, they're actually looking at starting the actual paving operations this week. And this is shown, this was the original schedule that was presented last month. But the good thing is they're still on schedule. They're actually even a little ahead of this. They're waiting on the paving crews to get on site now. But you can see right here, this is where they're at right here. This is the February 3rd to the 9th. They're about to start this paving operation on Sandia Creek tomorrow. So we should expect the paving operation to be going out there. And you saw on the roadway out there, and I'll be showing some pictures of that. But based on everything we've seen, this project should be wrapping up. The paving operation should be done, the end of this week, and then the Via Vaquero might go into next week, depending on how the paving crews do. They may be able to get on that this week. But you can see down here, and I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but the paving operations there was scheduled for next week. So they should have everything wrapped up the week after the next week. And then, they're gonna be doing erosion control and cleanup of the sites starting next week. And that may, depending on any punch list items, and I'm gonna, a punch list is basically when our inspector goes out and checks the site, make sure they did everything per the contract one last time. And if anything, isn't per the plans, they're gonna make what's called a punch list. And the contractor will have to do all that for us to accept the project and close the project out. So that process will go, it'll start the end of next week, may go into the following week, but we're anticipating everything to be kind of wrapped up by the end of next week, and any admin items or project closeout will be the following week. So, again, this project is going well, it's going ahead of schedule now. They're doing a great job out there. So, no complaints on the schedule wise, and, they're going to be, again, their contract says they have to be done by, it was mid-March. They're definitely going to be done with this project by mid-February. So that's a successful project in my eyes on the schedule side of things. So I'll move on to kind of the pictures. I know I'm showing you something that you may have already saw here. But as I said,
Ron, right?
yes.
Slow down. Okay.
Oh,
they-
sorry,
They are
that's,
gonna pave tomorrow out there on the roadway. But he's gonna also do slurry seals is being delayed due to some supply issues, so I think that's gonna be delayed like a week, so we might have to give him an extra week or so just to get all his materials and stuff. And also, Brian's gonna get everybody here in the room as extras for some of the additional paving slurry seal we want him to do. We'll
Okay,
get that tonight. So depending on how much that is and all that, we'll have to have a meeting with Jim and everybody, kind of see where we want to go forward on that. So just be aware of that.
We may need to put something on the agenda for the board meeting, but I don't know yet. Our thought was that we would just do it as a change order to the existing contract. But anyway, we've got to see what the numbers are and then figure out what the methodology is.
Yeah, we haven't got final quantities from the contractor yet. They don't think they're gonna change very much from what was bid. But yeah, they could come back with a few extra quantities or this and that, depending on what they put in the field, so. Hopefully we'll get that by the end of the week. I don't know. Did they give you an estimate on that final invoice for that? Ron?
for the additionals or
No, just for the existing contract.
for the existing contract, the actual invoice itself, looks like their quantities are right on board. They don't have any expected, extras on that, according to, the January invoice. And the only thing left was really, the erosion control, and a few items like the striping and the paving. So, that's the only thing that could run over.
Okay,
So,
so we had the one extra of the groundwater conditions, because when we bid this project, it was gonna be in the summer. There wasn't gonna be any groundwater problems out there, so that wasn't included. So with that account, we roughly have about $58,000 left in contingency, Joe.
Okay.
Ballpark number, 58, 60,000. So if all their asphalt and additional stuff we want them to do, we can get that down to like 50, in that ballpark range. You won't really have to go.
We were talking about going to the county line. I can already tell, we're not going to the county line, it's just the numbers just
Yeah.
aren't there. But if we could at least get that slurry and all the repairs contiguous to the area of work, like Via Vaquero, that one big
Yeah.
area. I mean, that's a must because it's gonna be gone, so, so that. And then all the repairs, like between the two K rails, I guess on Sandy.
Yeah, we were gonna slurry.
And then slurry the whole
So
thing.
when the numbers come in, we'll sit down and discuss it.
Okay.
Get Dustin, you, me, Ron.
Are the payments on these projects done with milestone payments as you go along, or are they?
Yes, the
Invoice at the end.
progress payments, we just paid 320,000, somewhere in that ballpark a week ago. And I believe the whole project is 850 or 900, or is it no, 1,200,000 because we have a Carol.
Yeah.
They're combined, oh, Teresa, right, 1,200,000?
Yep.
So it's eight,
Two,
it's a
three,
900 on Sandia and another 300 on 1,000. And so we're at 320 just combined of the two.
And when the contractor submits quantities and the cost, our inspector goes through it in detail before it even comes out. He approves it. Agrees with the contractor on the price.
Are the progress payments based on specific milestones on the milestone chart?
They're based on how much is done out in the field at the time of the invoice date.
Don't you guys, it typically is done monthly though, right?
It's done monthly,
Yeah.
but it's based on what's done at the end of the month. So we don't pay them for any.
Based on the position that you're at in the
Right,
milestone
yeah,
chart?
you go out there and say, hey, all the pipes are in, all the backfill is in, head wells are in, you just check off the prices on those and say, okay, that's, you're at this percentage of those and you get the full price for those, you get half price for this.
This looks like it's probably a Microsoft project file that we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Do you track the dollars on that as well?
No, we don't track the dollars on this. The program can handle all that, but we don't do that.
Okay.
It's all done on just a simple spreadsheet, percent complete.
Okay.
Based upon the bid doc, you have the bid documents with all the quantities and costs,
Mhm.
and then you have a percent complete, and that says how much that
Right.
they've earned minus what we previously paid them. So we go through the whole thing. And then we hold back 5% by California law for detention.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get paid to them until 35 days after the board accepts the project. So if something comes up, we still have 5% of the price.
And a similar file is created for each of the major projects.
Well, yeah, like this, it's 5% of this total contract, because this was bid.
And what I'm thinking is if this is an excellent management tool.
Yeah.
And a similar file to this would be prepared for Via Vaquero and for any other of the major projects.
Every project we do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And we have our
It would
inspectors.
really help me if I could get a hold of those files as we go into it, so I can kind of walk along with you as you're
Sure,
doing it.
we'll get that to you.
Appreciate
I'll
that.
I'll give it to Jim. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Ron, go ahead.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so I'll definitely get that bid schedule. It'll show you the quantities and it'll give you a better understanding of what's going on there. So thanks for updating me on the information that you found out on the field there. So as you have seen, and as I mentioned, they're gonna be doing the paving operation. So this is how Sandia Creek looks now. As you remember, it was a giant hole in the road. Now they got that all backfilled in. They got their rough grading in there and everything set up to just throw the pavement on top. So everything's kind of set up for that, for their paving operation. Next thing you know, this will be all asphalt and we'll be that much closer to the end of this project and a successful project. So here we have, since the last board meeting, something they've done. This is what they call a concrete cutoff wall. And the purpose of this is basically to hold the rock slope protection, which otherwise known as riprap. It's just giant rocks that we put in as erosion control measures to help, guide the water in the pipes and make sure the pipes aren't eroding, make sure the water isn't eroding the ground around the pipes. So as you can see here, this is the actual concrete cutoff wall that was poured. You can see they have the pumps that are avoiding water while the concrete was curing. And then just for another one, I have the kind of picture to show you the scale. They have to dig this down because the riprap goes about 6 feet down. And this is probably during the excavation. So you can see the concrete cutoff wall goes all the way down where the riprap is. And they'll be filling that all up with the large rocks that you probably saw on site. And for the next picture, that is kind of the completed project with those giant rocks that, the concrete cutoff wall is holding all the rocks in place. You use a larger rock so it doesn't wash away, and it actually helps with the hydraulics of the whole site. Make sure it doesn't completely just wash everything away and come out of the pipe going too fast. It also helps with anything getting underneath the head wall. That's it's an erosion control measure. It's really going to keep this project going well. So that's, as you can see, this is Sandia Creek with the 5 pipes there. And this is kind of the overall look of how everything looks. You can see the fine grading up into the roadway bank, and this head wall is, retaining that everything back so you can fit the pipes in. So that's what you saw out there. I think it should be exactly what you saw. I think this picture is from one of the last things they did. So that's kind of the final product here, minus the roadway. So I think everything came out looking pretty well. Just amazes us. I think that this was just a giant hole in the wall now, and now we got that fixed up. Been a long time coming, so I'm glad to see this. It's a definite relief in my books. So next we have Via Vaquero. At the last board meeting, they were starting to pour these head walls. You can see here, this is all the rebar and the pipes in place. This is what goes in before they place the actual concrete. And then the next picture here, that's kind of everything that's poured. This should be kind of what you saw out there now. Again, you have the riprap, but you can't see the concrete cutoff wall because it's dirty right now, but that's in place there. And then the rock slope is protecting that head wall before water gets in or as water is leaving it. So that's kind of the final product there. You see they have the temporary asphalt on top of the roadway so that we can have traffic there. The cones delineate and everything, but they were able to do this while keeping the traffic open. I haven't heard any issues on that side. So it seems like everything was going well and traffic was flowing. So I'm glad to hear that. And then again, they will be taking out that temporary asphalt and placing the final AC pavement per the plans. That'll be done either the end of this week or next week. But yeah, the storm drain improvements are all in place for both sites. The tunnel is conveying the water the way it was meant to be. There's no extra pumping going on. There's no water diversions going on. They're functioning 100% now. So it's good to see these creeks flowing the way they should be now. Again, it's been a long road to come here, so I'm really glad to see these. But that's basically the conclusion of what I'm seeing. I know it was probably more exciting to see it in person, so I may have been rehashing something you've already seen, but just wanted to give you an update. And I think that kind of concludes my presentation on Sandia Creek and Via Vaquero.
And one thing I want to point out is that 6-foot concrete wall of it goes down. That's critical because like Sandia Creek, it started to erode on the downstream end, where it eroded the big hole and started taking out all the pipes. So this prevents that from happening. That's one of the ways a lot of these culverts wash out, you know, or they get water that goes around the pipe, you know, the dirt, and it goes also through the pipe. It also goes just on the outside of it, takes dirt out, causes a collapse like happened on Via Vaqueros. Whereas like these head walls and the way it's sealed and all that, that's not going to happen on these.
Right.
And we built these to we don't want to go through this again.
Got that right.
Yeah.
So the design looks good and the workmanship looks excellent.
Yeah. Contractors done a great job on the previous projects and this project, so we've had no complaints from them other than normal residents getting mad that are gonna get mad anyway. Yeah, that is not their fault. Yeah. So anyway, with that, any questions?
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item E, Buena Vista.
Ron, you're up again.
All right, I'm still here. So now Buena Vista, we actually had some status updates on the environmental permits. Just last month, around mid-January, around January 20th, January 21st, we completely submitted everything that the California Department of Fish and Wildlife required. So that permit is in. The clock is ticking on their end. You know, our consultants are reaching out to them every week, trying to get an answer on what everything's going on. But we are expecting an answer within 30 days of that submittal on whether the application is complete. And then they will process everything and hopefully issue the permit. That's what they, in our past experience, since we did work with them before, as we've kind of discussed. I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, but all that preliminary work that we did caused them to give us a permit almost right away. So, you know, all our work is going towards good effort here, and we're making the best progress we can on that. So CDFW is one of the 3 agencies. So that one is almost completely out. It is completely out of our hands and in their review process. So that's a good status update there. The next 2 are the Regional Water Board and the Army Corps of Engineers, which are kind of tied together really well. So again, at the same time, around the same week that everything was submitted and finalized for CDFW, the Regional Water Board, we provided the additional information. It required some additional field work that our environmental consultant was able to go out there and, you know, they had to resurvey the top of bank, which per their new requirements, they said they wanted them this way. They always kind of change the way they want it displayed. So we had that taken care of for them, and then we updated the updated submittal package to them. That is on their desk to provide comments to us here shortly. So we're waiting on that, but again, that'll start the clock ticking on that. So everything is on board with still looking for the spring. The clocks are ticking now, so we have everything in the permit agency's hands that we can get. Nothing more that we can do on our end. It's just following up with them, and we have little notes on my desk to follow up with them weekly and make sure they're keeping everything on track. So no, everything's still on board for this spring to get everything we need done. And as we've mentioned in the past, we do have a contractor on board, and he is eager to get going on this. So we'll wait for this environmental process, which it is a long and arduous process, but once we get everything we have, we are, ready to go boots on ground. It'll just be one board meeting away and then we start basically. So I think everything's looking good for Buena Vista, and then hopefully in a couple months here, I'll be showing you some nice pictures of Buena Vista being constructed, but just gotta wait on this environmental process and everything that we're being told throughout it.
This are the environmental people, both the consultant side and the government side. You have to pay them both. That's just, it's a killer, but And then typically when we're done, our plans will not change. Their plans are gonna same as what they were 3 years ago, And you go through all this so they can get some of their call it mitigation fees for disrupting dirt. So anyway, dirt,
Here's the dirt.
here's the dirt,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's things grow in there.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving on. Oh, let's talk future. Mr. Hunt.
Okay, question, Ron, did you give them a copy of the detour cost estimate for the 4 roads?
I did not provide that to the committee members. I can share that on the screen right now if that would help.
Yeah, put that up there on the screen if you can.
All right.
Last September, we discussed this and we sent a crew, one of our pavement guys out there and looked at it. And there was 4 roads, 2 of them had really bad pavement on it, 2 were in relatively good shape. And so what's the total on all 4 of the roads, Ron?
I can add that up right now. I have it broken down in each one. So
But I think the rehab part of it on the 2 jobs was close to $200,000, like Jim and I talked about. And then there's the slurry seal on the rest of it. And so it's coming up to a pretty good chunk. Like that section there, you can see the rehab on that one itself is 244 just by itself. And so you add it all up, we're probably in the 700,000 range.
that would be if we did the full rehab, the recommended rehab on Buenos Campos. If we just did the slurry seal, it was only 130, well, not only, but 135,750, which is not, it's a Band-Aid fix. The real fix would be this one right here to actually get this road completely railed. But the slurry, and this is what we discussed in the September committee meeting. And I have that presentation ready as well if you wanted to go through that.
Okay, so make it clear, with rehab and everything, how much is it?
So for Buenos Campos, the full repair would have been 485,710, but 244,000 of that is the remove and replace basically function of it, the construct 2-inch AC overlay. And then if we were just to slurry seal it, it would be 135,000. It's $300,000 less, but it's again just a Band-Aid fix. These problems are still going to be underneath the slurry seal, but at least for now, it won't be getting any worse. That makes sense.
Yeah, is there any other roads out there that we?
Yeah, there's the first 2. Those are the smaller ones, and this was just, some of them were in pretty decent condition from the time we did our field analysis, but this is for Tierra Rico Drive, which I believe is the first leg of the detour. That's about 22,900 with the contingency, and that's about 10,000 of that is just slurry sealing the entire section. And then the next section of the detour is the Anza Road, which comes out to a total of around 65,400 to slurry seal the entire road and stripe it, and the traffic control involved with that. So if you add the 3 up, you get 88,300 plus 485,710. So for the full repair with the full Buenos Campos, it would be about 574,000. And then if you just do the Band-Aid fix on Buenos Campos, it's still going to be $224,050. So
That's our range. And this is something that we promised people when we set up the detour, that when we all said and done, we would come back and repair their road.
What's the general range of time to accomplish?
We could get all that done. Well, let's just say you guys pick this to go for the next year's CIP budget. We could have everything start construction August, September, when it's still warm. And you know, your good payment will stick and everything will work well.
We begin in July.
We could, if you gave us the start to do the design early, we could be ready in July. But technically, your money isn't available until July 1.
Yeah, July 1.
So that's up to you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so yeah, I would think that we would do the design first.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's all up to you. Because a lot of my clients say,
It'll be up to the board, but that's my thought.
we've gone different directions and different people, so we've done it both ways. And so we can have it designed, out to bid, and ready to go, let's say in July. And that's plenty of time to do that.
So basically, if you add the section, we just continue the detour down to the county line, which would pick up the Sandia Creek Park. Okay, from the pictures we saw.
Yeah.
Did those repairs. We're probably looking at around another 100,000 and slurried that.
Yep,
So now you're at a range of let's just say 300 to 600. The numbers you were throwing out, by rounding up a little bit. So that would add, say, another 100 plus. So 300 make it 400 to 700 or 800. So my point really is just the projects down there finish off this whole Sandy Creek project. Takes your budget for the year. Now, if it came in low, then what I would think we could look at would be, if we're gonna be slurrying at the end of, as they do the repairs, they slurry and stripe. Pick up more streets that we haven't slurried and striped. So let's say, because the engineering estimates tend to be high. When we go out to seal bid, lately, the engineer's bid or estimate has been high. So if that be the case, you could do another 200, say, just guessing, if we're that. You could put 200 into more slurring and striping, like we talked about, somebody had thrown out on the northern end of Sandy Creek at Avenue Del Oro that hasn't been done yet. We could add that, and there's a few other places, I think. Because really the issue before you is, right now, in next meeting is, what's our project gonna be? And unfortunately, a big chunk of it has been taken out of your hands by, prior boards and committees who made these promises. So it doesn't leave a whole heck of a lot. So it's 225, then you add another 100, 575. There'll be 6, so there would be some left over, I suspect, a couple 100,000. If you go that direction, but it's up to you.
typically we've been doing projects in the 725 range.
Yeah. And that, it's around $1 million. But there's always little projects that come up in the year, like an emergency nature or whatever. So we've been trying to hold it at about 750. So
Is there a target reserve?
well, that keeps the reserve in place as it is right now. And I would guess, just to toss out a number, The true reserve, after you back out all the other obligations for the cash on hand right now, is about 3 million. So we could do one $3 million, say, overlay job, but that would be it. There wouldn't be any further reserve. Now, that doesn't mean that if there was an emergency or whatever, that we couldn't draw on other obligated funds. But as it stands today, I believe if Teresa were here, but it's about 6 million cash in the bank right now. With, and basically the FEMA is paying about, on these projects, 75% of the cost.
Mhm.
So these are different than the small projects, which they count for those differently. This, because they're just one job, our obligation on these should cover most of the projects.
Dave, do we have, we've done a lot of work in the last 2, 3, 4 years, you know, with the 2 projects. Do we have an idea of what streets are left, the cost of what streets are left, just to slurry seal them and stripe like Jim is saying? You know, 2/3 or 3/4 of the district has gotten some treatment. And then there's those, whatever it is, 10, 20 streets, whatever's left over that have not received anything yet. Do we know about what that?
Well, I don't think we've come up with that, have we, Ron?
We don't have a total of what, everything that is left. We have the ballpark numbers on that map that shows actually have that right here.
And we
And you
gave you a map that, what this map does though, is it's, from when you guys did your initial payment management study before I got here. We took the cost that they gave us and updated them to current cost, basically doubled what was in the report. And so you come up and say, okay, here's the roads we haven't done anything with, here's how much it would cost to do the repairs that were recommended. That'll give you an idea of what we haven't done. But it doesn't, it's not quite the same as, and it shows the slurry seals that we did in 2020 and also what we did in 2018, stuff like that. So it gives you kind of a good overview.
Don't we have one with what's left, what we haven't done? I think I've seen that.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it's
I
only
think we
like
did.
20 streets or something like
We
that.
did
were
have
left, but
something like
We
that.
almost got them all last time, you know, we were very aggressive.
We made a map up that kind of shows that, but we didn't give you a cost for just slurry seal. This includes rehab, grind and repair and overlay, it's whatever was recommended. This is taking a street that takes it up to, or it's in great shape. So there's 2 ways of looking. You can slurry seal everything, and that's even the roads that should be repaired, but you know, money, you want to give it a coat and just get it kind of sealed up. Typically, we try and do that in cities like every 7 years, slurry seal the street, just to kind of keep it up to speed. But you still have a lot, I mean, basically you got $12 to $15 million of improvement on these roads, because you haven't touched some of them ever.
Yeah.
You know, and we're chipping away at it,
Yeah.
but there was many a year out there that you didn't do anything to them.
On the inspections today, there were some comments from the contractor about difficulty in getting material and delays because of that. The
Yeah,
allotments for concrete and asphalt, slurry, I guess, as well, any oil project. I'm assuming none of that delay or extended cost has been worked into the budget yet, as far as recent.
well, what we've done is we've taken recent costs that we've got on similar projects and looked what they are like per square foot, and then realized that we had to double everything that was on here, so we just doubled everything based on the current cost.
So that's an attempt to account
It's an
for.
attempt to get us up to speed on that, just so that it's a ballpark to look at. Again, this was done superficially drive, guys driving the road.
Yeah.
Going 10 miles an hour down the road and going, picking the microphone, going, oh, yeah, this road has alligator track. This road, 10% of it needs to be, rehab or all of it. It's not until you actually send someone out there, like our guys go out there and they walk it, and they actually mark off where it needs to be taken care of. Come up with your true price, but it's a tool to study to give you an idea where to go. Now, not each district, you got 5 districts out here. Not all of them have enough money to do anything. We spent all the money for Buena Vista in that one district. And they don't really have any more money out there this year.
And if I could add, construction costs right now are at a crazy range of higher than they would usually even be just by adjusting. According to, stuff we've been reading by economists and everything, we're expecting it to go down at the end of the year, but, we can't predict the future. Our engineering estimates that we, submitted recently to other cities have all been almost lower than what we're seeing, and we've adjusted based on that. That's where these doubled numbers came from. But right now is a really tough time because of the same reason the contractors were outlining. I mean, you're seeing steel prices up 250%. You're seeing crazy, they're just having problems with transit and everything just because of material and supply shortages. So right now we are in a tough time in the construction industry. So prices are going to be higher than they would typically be at this time because of everything that's going on. So I just want to, add that disclaimer in as well.
But what we've learned is when we put a project out to bid, even if we're gonna, so let's just say we say, okay, this should take you guys 60 working days. Well, that's assuming they can get all their materials. The guy says, hey, I can't get my asphalt. I'm in line and I have to wait 2 months. So you basically say, okay, the clock won't start till you get your material. You can't make them, pay liquidated damages because he can't go out and get his material. You got to be fair to contractors, and just things will take longer to do. So that's why it's Joe starting the design on that quicker
Yeah.
will help us. But maybe according to Ron, you wait a year, it might even be cheaper. But who knows?
You can't read the crystal ball.
Can't be the crystal ball. And when's the last time we saw prices drop down? They go up and they go, okay, we just want to increase it anymore. Because we're getting paid this.
Yeah.
So it's a tough road. And
No pun intended.
and I think we can make since Dustin just got promoted, we can just say, hey, it's all on you now. Tell us what the crystal ball is going to say.
Not in his job description.
Do that yet.
Did we put that in there?
Never yet in there.
In as much as we more or less promised the detour. Am I to assume your recommendation to the board is that we'll do the detour this year? You want to continue the commitment? It's really up to the committee, how they feel about it. And then it really seems to me that the only alternative with funds we have left is finish that whole Sandy Creek project up and finish it down to the county line. So we're finished down there for hopefully a long time. And the folks that, are happy with the detour, there's problems. And then maybe take as many roads that have not yet been slurried and see how far we get with that. And that would be the project for the year. And I know I've heard a few negative comments. Oh, we don't build any roads around here or do any work on the road. But what you've just seen on the screen is no small job by, we're a pretty small agency. And then we're going to do another one of those in probably 4 months. We've done a lot of reconstruction. So in terms of a balancing act, And I wasn't a big pro slurry guy. So the Will Dan and Ventura County knew, don't come in to me with a slurry job because I want you to put on the agenda. Because back then, my view of slurry was, it was like what you did on a driveway.
Right.
But his spec, and the first one he did here, is he said, no, it's all wrong. He used to go and crack seal all the cracks by hand, and then you'd slurry over it. But the slurry they're using now, so the first one, a believer by me, it fills everything. I mean, the road looked almost new for a while. I don't remember if you remember back when we did it. We've done it, what, twice now? And then you put the nice striping, which is a safety thing, you know, to keep the fog lines on the side, you know, right, keep the glass in there and the center lines and the bars, stop bars and all of that. I think you get an awful lot of bang for your buck, and on this paver, which assesses the condition of our streets,
Mhm.
how much credit do they give for life of the road? Is it 7 years? Paver?
Well, I mean, the actual roadway itself?
Yeah, so when you give them the map of what you said we could send it in, I believe the credit, if it,
Slurry seals are normally about
Yeah.
a 7-year rotation.
Yeah,
You get about 7 years, you know,
you
then
get,
you
yeah,
do it again 7 years later.
you do unless your road is just really in bad shape,
like Via Vaquero.
like the,
That's just-
those alligator, we call them alligator cracks. They just start popping up when big trucks go by after it rains.
What's the lifespan if you do the grinding?
Oh, 20 years
20, yeah,
Without any slurry or
with
anything?
nothing.
could be 25, depending on the volume, because you have some streets up here that are, 100, 200 cars a day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're not gonna do it.
how little cars we have up here.
Huh?
I forget how little cars we have up here.
Yeah, so they're not doing a lot of damage, and that kind of stuff, so.
A lot of places, and St. Louis is one of them.
Which brings me back to like what you were saying about the detour. Buenos Campos carries probably a couple hundred a day after the detour,
After.
it's carrying 3,000 a day now.
Yeah.
But when the detour goes away, it's gonna be down in the low hundreds, and so I'm not, when I see that number and I say, okay, we get $275,000 worth of slurry, or we get $575,000 and we pay Buenos Campos. It's like, I don't know if that's the best use of $300,000, that's all we have. I mean, that's taking most of our budget for a street that's gonna have virtually no cars on it. And when I get to my report, there's a request by the owners wanting to close it off during the peak hours, so that any cars that even would come through during the peak hours is gonna be gone too. It's like, well, then that's all the more reason maybe not to spend 300,000 to fix it if it's only gonna be 2 cars or 5 cars a day on it. Nobody lives on that street except for 2 people, and that's a boatload of money going out for that. So, if you could do, $700,000, let's say, of patching, like Jim's saying, you patch Sandia Creek south of Buenos Campos, you patch up to De Anza, you slurry seal the whole thing. You slurry seal the whole detour route, De Anza, Tierick and that, and you restripe everything there. And then you take whatever money's left over, which sounds like that could be $300,000 or $400,000 still left over. That could go probably a long ways on those 20 or so streets that we know haven't been touched yet. You're not reconstructing anything
Right.
except for the part we're talking about on Sandia Creek, because it's gonna get 3,000 cars that needs the reconstruction. But you're gonna get a lot of publicity for what you're doing here with a measly $700,000 worth of work. Because you go on a street like Vaquero or something, you fix a quarter mile of it and you wasted $700,000, $800,000. And there's only 150 cars or 125 cars on Vaquero all day long. It's like, so,
That's the balancing.
That's the
act that
balance,
these
yeah.
Guys have to.
yeah.
Now, Justin, though, wasn't there a lot of damage, quote unquote, on the detour route over the 2.5 years?
Yes, we
That's
try our
what
best
they're
to keep up with
kind of
it.
got us because
Yeah.
they watched the deterioration.
Sure.
So again, it's the balancing act, you know, yeah, there's two homes down there, but, I don't know, if we could just, I did it, board members did it, but we'll take care of it when it's all set over, you know?
Yeah.
And that's their expectation. So I think that if we were to just say, we're not doing anything down there, the problems all over detour is gone. I think we'd have a pack.
Oh,
Well, yeah, we probably need more information too. I know some of the owners in that area are concerned that when Sandia Creek opens back up, a number of the people using the detour now have learned a new route and will start to use that. So that what may have been a couple hundred cars a day may not we may not go back to that.
Right.
So we need to see, I guess, where the,
And that could be the approach you take, is let's do a wait and see approach. Let's wait till we get the numbers in after the detour is open and decide if we're gonna give it more or less
right,
money, you know,
Right.
not so bad, but
we were talking about that earlier.
is there a level of effort between the two extremes of the new road and the slurry seal? In other words, are there, if you go in and
I can chime in on that a bit. So I can chime in on that a bit. So if there's, looking at, from what I saw in pictures that were shown to me on Buenos Campos, there are some pretty major potholes. You can do a, you know, remove and replace, a dig out of just those pothole areas. You know, it's not gonna give you a brand new looking road, but you know, it's functional to get rid of those potholes. The potholes are one of the biggest issues we see on the roadway that can really create problems. So if you can repair those potholes for a lot cheaper, you at least get a, you know, we did work on the road. We could fix the major issues, you know, the cracking, if we're having such little traffic on it, you know, it's not going to get worse as fast as, you know, the larger roads. So that is something, and excuse me if I'm speaking out of line here, but no, I think the one thing that should be kind of discussed is any of those major potholes. And I think looking at the remove and replace numbers, that could be done for, you know, in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, just fixing the potholes. Looking at that, of course, we'd have to do a full field inspection and have to put that as part of a larger project. But if we were to at least just fix the major potholes on Buenos Campos, I think we can do that for fairly cheap compared to fixing the entire roadway itself. Just my 2 cents on that, I guess.
with a slurry seal on top of that,
That's
you end up with a reasonably,
and then it'll look nice, it'll ride smooth and without heavy 3,000 a day traffic, and you go down to, let's say, 600 a day, you know, that's 20% of the traffic. Well, then you're not gonna beat it up, you know, and stuff like that, so.
And all the cracks are sealed because this kind of, I mean, you probably noticed, this is thick slurry.
It's 3/8 inch thick.
Yeah, so you don't have to run around crack sealing because, except for the really bad.
quite different from what I saw down in San Diego, which is more like a paint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That's why I said, you know, in the past, like, don't even bring it, but Dave's like, oh, it's Caltrans. So the first time, we'll wait and see it, sure enough. And then it avoids the need for the crack seal. Unless the cracks are significant. We had that last time, we had to go do some cracks.
But you can still seal those too, you know, before you seal it.
Yeah, if they're
that's
close to
pretty
like a
cheap.
1/2 inch wide crack, you need to fill them in.
Yeah,
But
We have our own crack sealer in-house now.
that's right. And it was, you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we already got 2 bids I went out there and got the square footage for Buenos Campos. And one bid was at 25,500. One was at 26, a little over 26. That's for all the patching on Buenos Campos.
That's good. So,
That's far less than, you know, spending 200,000 or 300,000 to reconstruct the whole road. And yet, you know, you get that 25 or 30,000 and story on top of it.
We were looking at, because we have a limit of 25, so we can go out and do repairs up to 25 as long as we have budget. So that's what Dustin is referring to. Because we may be able to just do some small projects and then just slurry it.
We could,
But you guys can,
but I thought also on the roads that it was the edges, like the last outside foot was all caving in all along that. Doesn't that all have to be removed and replaced?
Not all of it, because we already had some existing patching. 2 different contractors were out there throughout the time of Sandia Creek being closed. We had Peters Paving, which did the edge, and they were doing a grind and replace full depth. And then we had NPG also go out there and also do grind and replace.
Maybe some stuff's been done since we.
But there's a lot more work to be done.
There is, but
Yeah.
what that number was like what I was talking about.
Well, what numbers we gave you when he talked about, the high one gives you basically almost a brand new road. I mean, it'll look fantastic, it'll last a long time. You want to scale that back? You want to scale that back? We can do that. I think we can, Ron can make up a map for all the different roads that aren't slurry sealed and a cost estimate to go with it.
That'd be,
Slurry
That'd be
sealed.
helpful.
that'd be very helpful and
And then we
if,
can compare that and what we have.
if there's some sort
We'll
of
write up,
a,
give you guys a report next time and say,
yeah,
okay, here's everything black and white.
that'd be excellent. And if you can prioritize based on need. And need, I guess, is two things. One's condition and the other is the level of use.
Yeah, and also need is, who's gonna complain? if we don't do it certain way, who's not,
Well,
headache.
certainly an element to that, but
Headache you guys are gonna get into if you don't do it.
we've got to kind of watch out after the whole area and,
Oh, you do. Like I say, it's, you wanna do the whole area, you gotta come up with $12-15 million or more.
I mean, everybody wants
I
to.
heard
treat
it.
Yeah,
That doesn't include drains.
yeah.
I'm sitting here remembering, the youngsters here, the new committee members. They weren't here, it was 3 years ago now, in this very meeting, on this very topic. And the committee generally said, come back with, I'm not sure even you were here. Yeah, no, I don't think you were. And it was the engineer we had, that, come back, we kind of know what direction we're going in. And then somebody says the meeting is getting close to adjourning. Anybody been reading the weather report for tomorrow night? And then everybody had, and we went out that door where they're laughing. We'll wait and see what happens. Well, $3.5 million worth of damage
Right.
later. And that was the Sandy Creek, Point of Vista, all the small project, all that. So everything about slurry seal sounded awfully insignificant.
well, the good news, I think, is that the quality of the work that's been done to recover from that is sufficient to withstand a duplicate of the
Yeah.
circumstance. So that's beautiful work that's done out there and it's good design. One of the things that old boss used to say, if you do something right, you don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah.
And there's a good plan to that, but there is
Cost
when
price tag.
When the alligators are biting, it's hard to remember you're supposed to be draining the swamp. So,
Very good.
I heard that just a little bit different, a few other words thrown in there, but we didn't.
everybody might have heard that.
Try not to.
That's when I was there.
Okay.
I think perhaps we could do the switch and do the field crew report.
Oh, sure.
And then
Oh,
they
you're
can,
right,
they
you're
can hit
right.
the road, they're
Sure.
off duty officially.
Okay, sure, we can go.
And this is Dustin's first committee meeting as
Yeah.
under the table. He was promoted a few weeks ago to, right now it's level 3 because I'm working with the HR people and finding, but it's basically working supervising. Foreman, I think maybe a little bit higher level. So he's now taken over that position, so maintenance report now falls to him, so have at it.
Sounds good. So for the month of January, we're just continuing on with our normal operations of shoulder grading and our tree trimming, getting things out of our right of way and over the edge of pavement, just making everything clean and drivable and safe. And then currently, obviously we have our 2 new employees. I'm working with them, doing field training, safety, just getting them up to speed with all of our daily operations in the field. And they're taking off with it. Both CJ and Derek have been great. This is Derek's first day. And everything's going really good. We're updating the yard a little bit to make it a little bit more operable for us. We want to be able to spend more time in the field and have less time in the office for our field crew so that we can continue to give you guys the best service possible. And then coming up here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing, replacing a culvert, which has had a problem already. And Rancho Waters had a pipe burst that ended up causing the bottom of one of our pipes to blow out. So we're going to be replacing that and doing it in-house. It's going to save us quite a bit of money. And that's pretty much it. We have also another small repair on El Prado, which is just to replace a small section of pipe that's off the roadway to prevent any sort of damage to the edge of pavement. And that would be it.
When there's an issue with a water or other utility, does that utility bear the cost of the repair of the road?
Yes, they do. So they're going to be working with us. The culvert ultimately is ours. It was already rusted, unfortunately, and it was in poor condition. So it was just a matter of time, and it's time for it. But they are willing to work with us on the asphalt replacement. So it sounds like we won't have to inquire that cost. That is a good thing.
They gotta dig things up anyway, so while they got the hole open, we're gonna drop some stuff in there for them and
Okay.
No, actually, the hole isn't open. I actually have to, we're gonna be trenching across the roadway. And it's adjacent to where their hole was. And we're just gonna be working together and get it all finished up. That'll be finished by the end of next week.
This is Capistrano,
Yes, sir.
and you're planning to begin the 16th, I believe,
14.
14th. This is all new. We've never done pavement work here. All pavement work has been contracted out. When Dustin came to us here and a half years ago, he determined that he had this capability, knowledge, whatever, so we sent him out to Sycamore Mesa and said, have at it. Rented him up all the equipment, he knew what to do, equipment, materials, blah, 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 blah. And what we doggone was as good as a contractor could do for about $45,000 plus. So we've been doing some smaller projects, but we didn't have manpower. Now we have it. So, and these folks have experienced long in this realm. So I think we'll be doing a lot more in-house. So we'll try these guys out. Now, that thing better come out as good as his Sycamore Mesa.
Sure will.
I'm sure.
Definitely
it
will.
will.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice meeting you. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, of course.
Speaking of the whole storm drains and stuff, you do have a map that should give you for the files to show you where all the storm drains are. In case,
We got this.
in case you want,
Over here.
so.
I think they're up there. They're gonna give each one of you a copy.
We fixed two.
These are two separate.
They're Staples guy. Oh, this is the whole thing, master map?
Yeah.
This is-
Oh, that goes on top of this one. Okay. Okay.
So, we give you the roads, we give you the storm drain, stuff that you're responsible for, you should kind of be aware of. So,
We did, this was a new map like 3 years ago when Logan came to us. Actually, it started before that, a year before. And how many do we have? 70, 80 or something?
Yeah, a little over 700.
And probably 100 or keep close eye on right now. From the inspections we've done. So, it's under the workable doing 100 watch. That one.
We just fixed two.
Yeah.
And you had, what, 59 or something like that?
Yeah.
in the Last project, so 60 of them, got taken care of. You got another one coming up, in Buena Vista, so, they're talking those big ones up, but like I said, the good news is of the remaining 600 plus drains, less than 100 of them are really problematic at this point, but
Okay.
most of them are still good shape. They're built to last, what, 40, 50 years? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and like that, so. They're.
Do we think any of them are in danger of collapse?
We're addressing any that are that close, you know.
Well, this is one that that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And take it as we find out about it. So.
Yeah,
it- it-
and the important thing is these guys have to go out and clean these things every year. You know, so they've been going out, looking at them, cleaning out the entrance to them.
And there was no drain cleaning program.
Yeah, this
That's
is-
another thing. Before it was just,
Right.
they saw something, somebody called.
Right.
We physically inspect the last 2 years, right?
We've inspected them twice a year for the last 2 years, you know, so they're getting, you know, a lot of attention where they were getting inspected maybe once every 5 or 10 years. You know,
Right.
you know, I climb down
Yeah.
there, you know, kind of thing, so,
Right.
you know, that way we can catch it early, you know, and keep an eye on it, you know.
And what we're, the main reason we're doing this was so we can keep track of what's going on out there, but also on Buena Vista, we got dinged for no maintenance records.
Right,
So
That cost us the whole job.
It did.
FEMA turned it down.
they
Yeah.
turned it down because we didn't have anything to show them that we even looked at.
Right.
So,
And FEMA turned down Sandia Creek in the 2015 flood. So it was still in place. Right?
yeah,
And they said it on both. It was at the same time. That's how long Buena Vista is out there. But those two projects combined, they asked for about a little over 2 mil and got 0. But the 0 they got was they wouldn't even accept the application for federal money. And it was because no maintenance
No.
record.
yeah, no documentation.
And how we got it through in 19, probably because it was gone. And the whole thing was gone.
blown out.
And
The maintenance records were down in the drain and they washed away with.
that's right. We did that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we have a storm down there, right?
It was so dry, we just kept them there.
Yeah. No, we certainly learned our lessons, I'd say. Considerable improvement. So thank you,
We still
everybody.
got a lot of money out of them.
Yes. Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work and, but definitely worthwhile.
And even though we didn't succeed at getting our extra cost, it was primarily a drain job, the 53, somehow it was a drain. Pavement in most cases, a lot of shoulders, generally. So, as I remember, the extras that we were asking for, I think it was $1.5 million or something like that. And then the whole project was, they took $2 million, they gave us $1.5 million.
Yeah, right.
That's not too shabby.
No, not at all.
And we have to do the same process on this project. But the way they do the accounting for the big projects, and the fact that just one project, well, two locations, one project, I think we're doing a lot better. Because they were all small numbers. So
Right.
I think perhaps the powers that be are like, well, that's their country, that's not that much. This is much
It's a
larger.
wreck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even though the 500 is less, because it's just one time. Our extra.
Ready. Let's see, where are we?
Happy
Traffic.
drive.
After traffic, yes, trustee.
Jessica, you want to pull that up? I got a shorter report since I had my padre here do all the maintenance stuff, so.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good delegation.
He's taking over.
that's what we have to do, at the punch of the younger generation. I'm glad to do that. All right, so
Wow,
Yeah, we
I'm
got-
on here.
I'll make that,
Good job.
I'll make that full screen. And not doing
It'll
it?
Not-
work.
it-
All right,
It'll
all
work.
right,
That's
well,
okay.
you can see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
Oh,
go,
yeah.
we'll go from there. Okay, so our typical thing, we're moving our changeable message board around. We're gonna be over on Sandia Creek in the future. Right now, it's over on Capistrano by where that culvert is being replaced that he talked about. Like, letting people know there's steel plates ahead,
Okay.
things like that. So it's a multi-purpose device, but
All right, good.
back up here. How do we get it to that?
I don't.
Keep going.
There you go,
One
there you
more.
go.
Right, right.
Next one.
One more time. All right, so, as we talked in the past, we have 3 projects that we've been currently assigned to do. One is project 1, which is looking at stop sign requests like that, and we're still evaluating those. Project 2 is to establish speed limits along Carancho and Vaquero, and that's what we'll talk about today. Okay, so we collected data back in December. These are the types of things that we're looking at, the total volume, the speeds, the 10-mile-an-hour pace, the accidents, unusual conditions, all that kind of stuff like that. That's what goes into establishing a speed limit. And then we compare those to the state standards, and then we come back and bring your recommendations to you guys first and then the board. And that's where we're at. So on Vaquero, we clicked it, and the short story of it is, the 85th percentile comes out to be 40 miles per hour, but because there's conditions not readily apparent to the driver, we have the latitude to drop that 5 miles per hour. So we're recommending a 35 along via Vaquero. Sandia Creek.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
Do you know what the 85th percentile is?
We talked about that some. at the
We
last
did,
meeting.
okay. So that's
I'm
what
not
the
sure that it's
court,
all fully embedded yet, but I've
where
got an
the
overview.
court requires it.
Yeah.
In order to, like, if they challenge a ticket, right?
Yeah, what it basically says is that the law to establish speed limits was established on the premise that 85% of the public drives at a safe and reasonable
Right.
speed, and the other 15% drive aggressively and not
Right.
cognizant of the danger that they might create for others. So that's where you try to set the speed limit somewhere close to that 85th percentile. So they then created rounding up or rounding down type criteria and what you're allowed to do and when engineering judgment can play in. And you can say, yeah, but what if you can't see the fact that there's, a cattle crossing
Yeah.
over the hill around the curve, that kind of stuff. How do we get them to slow down and be aware of that, or the asphalt's sloped the wrong direction, that kind of stuff, and whatever it could be. So we have 2 sections on that we established at 35. And then we went to Carancho. And at Carancho, we have a similar situation on Hardin to Sandia Creek. It's 38, so we just rounded down to 35. And Sandia Creek to Duluth, it came out to 42. So there's where the condition not readily apparent played in. Because you have several driveways and side streets where due to the horizontal and vertical curves, sight distance is limited, stuff like that. So that keeps that steady at 35 all the way through for that whole segment. When you get to the section of Carancho between Duluth and Tortuga, the speeds are a little higher. A few more longer, straighter stretches, if you want to call them. And so it comes out to 44, so we just rounded it down to 40 and use that provision. So the courts will accept all those recommendations without any contention. There's nothing, we followed all the guidelines like that. Jim's got the report and everything like that. And then what we do is attach to that report the maps and the surveys. And then when we have the ordinance adopted kind of a thing, which we'll bring to you guys at your board meeting, that'll be the first reading. And then the second reading will be 30 days, later at your next board meeting. Then we submit it to the courts and then it becomes an enforceable by radar, post and stuff like that. So that's kind of the process. And then the last project is the one we were kind of talking about a little bit last month, was that we've been asked to do before and after counts. We've already collected all the before data. And when it opens up here late February, March, whatever time, we'll let it settle down for 3 weeks or so, kind of get people used to it. And then we'll come in and we'll do a new count and a new.
Is there a delay between the formal posting of signs, et cetera, and the point when it's enforceable? Is there any lag in there for training
Oh,
folks going through?
It's okay.
yeah, I mean, normally when people post it, the sheriffs and CHP give them, about 30 days or so to, get used to the new numbers and stuff like that. But, I don't think we're gonna have a problem with our enforcement enforcement being overly aggressive here to start, you know.
Probably not.
Yeah, so it's more of a, I look at it more of it's a guideline for those who are unfamiliar with the road. To kind of say, you know, I mean, right now they're not posted. So an unposted rural road could be up to 55.
55,
an hour, you know, I mean, like that, so.
Yeah.
But you don't want anybody going 55 on some of those hills or some of, you know, the
Huh.
visibility stuff just isn't there. You know?
Yeah, I pull off the road. I always end up with a big old pickup truck behind me. He wants to do like 65.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get run over, so I.
So this way, when you enter those segments, you kind of say, hey, this is about a 30 or 35 or 40, you know, kind of give you an idea of what the general lay of the land looks like for that
Right.
2 or 3 miles. And then that way there, you can judge your speed accordingly, you know. And I'd always like to do is put a sign up and just say, you know, where the long straight stretches and just say, if you speed up to X miles an hour, you know, for the next, you know, 5,200 feet, whatever it is, like, you're only gonna save 20 seconds, you know? And it just means you're gonna get that stop sign behind that other car that you're trying to catch, you know? Not worth it. We did get a request, as I mentioned earlier. The request is that they'd like to, the reopening of Sandia Creek, they'd like to implement no left turn, no right turn type restrictions to prohibit people from using Buenos Campos during the peak hours from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock PM. They use as their argument that there's only 2 homes down there, and those 2 homeowners are in agreement with it, so you're not gonna upset any homeowners that live on that street if you make this, you know,
Oh,
nobody
Okay.
nobody can come down our street for those 2 hours.
sure.
But, don't back up yet, back away. But the issue is, of course, if it turns out like we talked about, let's say it doesn't go back to 200 cars a day, it goes down to 600 because people found a new route.
Right.
If you push all 600 of those cars onto De Anza, you're gonna have more than 2 people screaming, you know?
Right.
So that's something that we have to be careful of, you know, if that's the right thing to do or not. Plus you have residents who have full right to go to and from work. You know, you have residents that live up in Toronto County that work in Fallbrook. So they're per se not cutting through, you know, they're not the Fallbrook residents who are trying to get to Marietta and back, you know, kind of cutting from Sandia Creek. They're not really cut through traffic, they're actual legitimate traffic, that's the way they normally go to work or something like that. So, you know, they would be restricted. Okay, now you can go ahead and shift.
Wouldn't enforcement just naturally account for that?
Pardon?
Wouldn't enforcement naturally account for that if someone were to, that lived on the street, made a turn, not in agreement with the restriction?
Well, if it's a resident trying to get back home.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you could have potentially the issue where they just say, okay, let me see your license and registration.
Right.
Oh, you live here, okay, you know, but I'm talking about the people who live on, you know,
Right.
Toronto or live on Cameron, whatever like that, and they're coming down there and instead of going down De Anza, and if they come down and do Buena Vista, those people would be subject to tickets too, you know, and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
You know,
Sensitive.
officers aren't allowed to be selective in their
Yeah.
enforcement, you know,
Yeah.
so it's.
Yeah.
It opens up a can of worms. So that they say you got a viable route there, but you're forcing people to use De Anza. The road reopens, most of the traffic is gonna go away, not all, but most. And so my thoughts and recommendation at this time would be take more of a wait and see approach. Let's get those counts in March, you know, see how it is. Let's maybe even check it again, you know, in, June or July and see if it goes down even further, because, you know,
Yeah.
patterns could change over. a
It
period
seems
of
kind of reasonable that any of the changes that we might consider, even those we've discussed in the last meeting, might need to have the update of what traffic really is under the new conditions of having Sandia Creek
Right.
open.
And it's possible that people have figured out, hey, I didn't really see this is actually just as fast to go this way or that way, or,
Yeah.
but most of those we would hope to be residents, but I'm sure that there are gonna be some people who have figured out that I can wind my way all the way to Los Gatos, I can get out to Clinton Keys, I can, you know, whatever like that. That's the route you like, you don't wanna just stay on the go down to Jefferson and just, take that all the way down. I mean, that, we can't stop them, but it's the idea that
Right.
there can be some of those, but how many? Let's find out.
Right.
Before we make any, the argument they used was, El Prado South has turn restrictions that we approved. And
Right.
so if they get it, why not we get it?
Right.
And there's a difference, because when you're coming east on Sandia Creek, it's a straight shot to Avenida del Oro. And El Prado South creates, because there's a stop sign at El Prado South creates a shortcut
Mhm.
to try to beat people. So if you're coming up, that sometimes you'll see 5, 10, 11 cars in a queue.
Right.
We watched it, measured it before the road was closed. And you'll see the last 4 or 5 cars in the queue take off, and they'll race up El Prado South because they want to beat the 6 cars. There's nowhere to pass along these roads. So the only way you can pass is take the little bypass route on El Prado South and beat them to the stop sign. And then you just pass 5 cars or 6 cars. Unfortunately, that's a 35-mile-an-hour street, but they're going, 45 to 55 on there type of thing. And that's, so we didn't want to have that happen. So, and we saw it happen during the peak hours. It was like kind of 50 to 55 cars an hour each, over 100 cars during that 4 to 6 hour, do the shortcut. They've learned that. They like the challenge of the race and, that kind of stuff like that, and it's like, so that's why we posted it. Well, we don't have that situation here because they're not racing to get anywhere. They're cutting through because it's a shorter distance, but they're not racing to get anywhere.
They also are asking for the AM. The AM peak
They are
hour
asking for the AM too?
says,
There is an impact on the.
I was gonna- I was-
Deanza, Terra, same no turn during AM.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, it's the same,
Okay.
whether it's in the morning
Yeah.
or,
They're not both.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then there you go. So then it's even.
Well, in the AM, an awful lot of the traffic is actually reversed to the PM traffic.
Right,
as you would
exactly.
expect.
They're one and the same.
So the posting would be at the Sandia Creek, at the other Sandia Creek intersection with El Prado, with a no left turn as opposed to no right turn.
That's a long way
No,
around.
this group is asking to have the ones coming from Cameron to Deanza, not to be able to turn on Tierrica. And go
Okay.
down and don't.
I misunderstood the comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did too. It says at the opposite end, Goins campus during the Sandy Creek day. In the opposite end, at the other end, Eureka. In the AM rush hours,
Okay.
heading east on Deanza.
Keep them on Deanza.
Keep that printed out.
They don't want traffic, the way I was reading it, they don't want traffic to come like east on Deanza and turn right on Tierrica.
Could you-
Okay.
My experience was with El Prado as opposed to the detour now. Prior to the detour, every morning traffic would be toward Fall Brook, which would be making a left turn onto El Prado from Sandia Creek.
Well, that wasn't heavily used because there was no advantage to, it's actually, a mile, a little bit longer than a mile to go on El Prado. But you don't pick up anything because then you have to stop at El Prado and you have to yield all the traffic coming out Sandia Creek to make a left hand turn.
Oh, there was no forward, no, always stop there.
No, there's no stop there. Yeah. So that was not being used in the morning, but in the afternoon, because there was a stop at El Prado North, they were cutting through the south from the beach and getting to that. Yeah, that was
Right.
heavy.
See, I don't think if people are using that as, they're only using it now because they don't have a choice. But that's a long way around the detour.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So who's gonna use it after the road, Sandia Creek's open?
Well, the ones that would use it would be, there are people who go out, we track it on the counts.
Yeah.
There are people who go out Deanza, go out Cameron, go out past Carancho, and then head on out to Los Gatos,
To the freeway.
to the freeway, eventually to Clinton Keith, to the freeway. Or they go down Duluth and go down the dirt road and then come out in Murrieta there. There are people that go that direction. There are residents, of course, that live in that westerly portion, of the community, So some of those are residents that are coming home from work, and some of those are
Yeah.
Fallbrook people that are cutting through
It just pushes that here.
So this is it right here. So they don't want people coming home in the evening, coming up here and turning left here
Uh-huh.
and shooting down here. To
Right.
go, to get out to the
Out, yeah.
community.
Yeah, exactly.
But, hey, that's a straight line. They want people to drive out of their way over to here and then come back over to here, they just come straight through.
Uh-huh.
Nobody's gonna do that. I mean, if those people that, if they're headed this direction,
They're gonna,
they're gonna go this way. That's the shortest distance,
Yeah, and I'm guessing the request here is based on the morning traffic coming this way.
Right.
Yeah, don't let us go here, we can put it here and put it here.
Right.
And I guess there's an argument too, that if there's only 2 homes on Buenos Campos, and there's, 10 homes on Yampa, why would you want to send all the traffic by 10 driveways if you can only send them by, 2 roads that virtually have no driveways,
Is this maybe one of those cases where we really need to see the data after the change so that we understand? This will go back to, will this remain, or will this be an all-way stop?
Yeah, we didn't plan to take it.
So, and this is not an all-way stop, is it?
That's an always stop.
It is also, okay, so there's the same barrier to both for someone coming this direction. Otherwise, they wouldn't favor this path
Right.
because of the,
You don't have an advantage of the distance.
Yeah.
So Chairman, if the engineering committee gives us a recommendation today that let's collect data and stuff like that, we don't need to necessarily bring this to the board next week with the same request? Or do we just go with, what do you think?
I think I would like to spend more time thinking about it before we make a decision that we don't back up from easily.
And if we hold off a month, we'll have the data.
I was just gonna say, we want the, supporting data.
That's what I'm kind of thinking, is that, we should have, the road would be open, we could get the data right before the board meeting.
Right,
And then you'd have, the options there to.
right,
But we don't have, a week from now, we have no data. So it would have to be in March.
March.
Right.
yeah,
And I think it's gonna be somewhat slow, people finding out. We're gonna have to give it 30 days or whatever. I'm not saying we wait, but,
Certainly the ones who are going to Marietta, Temecula, they're not gonna go the detour as soon as they see that road striped and paved straight
yeah.
ahead.
Right, they're gonna rush.
They're
Yeah.
gonna put pedal to the metal, they're off and running, so they're gonna be gone instantly.
yeah,
How many of the people decide to take Sandia Creek to Avenida de Oro to Rancho Cal and go down the Duluth Road versus maybe wind through, Carancho to Duluth Road to Cameron to Duluth Road?
Mhm.
Yeah, that may take a while before some of those people, retrain. The ones going out Clinton Keith, out Los Gatos, that's probably not gonna change,
I suggest it.
Again, I think we need to get at least past the opportunity of having some data to look at. And if we can prioritize getting the traffic flow data, looking at it from the standpoint, I think you just mentioned if things don't change, or maybe Jim did, things don't change instantly. What's a reasonable point in time to sample that traffic?
But we're really, like I said, usually you want to give 2 or 3 weeks, you know, and stuff. But the problem is that, let's say we don't open the road till, you know, March 1st. Well, 3 weeks is going to be March 21st. Now we missed your engineering meeting and your board
Right.
meeting
Right.
in March. So if April, we could probably make April easily, you know. But if we're trying to rush back with March, we might have data that's not really, like
Relevant.
you say, you know, people haven't quite figured it out
Right,
yet. Or
it's not, yeah.
Clearly, we want to give the message that we understand the plight of the folks that live down there and want to respond to it, but maybe the message is to announce the sampling of traffic, the study, to determine what the right action will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the approach we've taken with all the traffic
Right.
requests is that
Yes.
we're data driven.
Right,
You know, we're not emotionally driven. We're, the
Right.
professional staff is here to give you data, and
right,
then you guys can look at the data and decide.
right, to determine,
And
right,
so I think that's a very prudent way to go is to,
right.
now let's collect the data, and let's shoot for maybe April, and we could,
I'd say, yeah, April, I think April.
if you want, we could just make this slide in just to an announcement
I
of
was
that
just
we're
gonna
gonna
say,
collect data
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
then,
I was
and
gonna
then not
say,
go into
because I'm
all the
not sure
details
she'll
that
be
way,
there
you
next
know.
week.
I'm of the opinion
Should
that
the chair show up next week?
at the moment, if the traffic does continue to be heavy there, that we do need to give some relief, but we need to know whether it's going to be good or not.
But I think you made a really good point in terms of, you know, whether you put it on, we need to respond to her, you know, verbally or written also, but also in the event that you might just want to mention it, but we have done what you just talked about. We've taken some time back to take a look and to do the study within a reasonable amount of time, you know, before we come up with a final recommendation or a decision. So you're not changing any of your criteria in terms of what we've done in the past.
Right,
We want to keep going down that path,
right.
you know, so,
Could you send her back a response?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right away, what you're, you know, the day you're reviewing the data, where you
Right.
need 30 days or 60 days. We discussed it with the committee, and the committee, you will be reviewing it again with them at the April meeting.
Yeah.
And then if there's some concern, then she can call me. That'd be,
okay.
okay.
But I think again, because, you know, our criteria in the past has been,
Yeah.
you know, sort of
Give us the facts.
inconsistent. Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to stray from it. Okay. And Julie's, I mean, you know, she's pretty straightforward, so,
Yeah,
yes, I don't.
But they're.
Yeah. Okay, but very good, yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that would be great, Steve, yeah, keeping up what we've
Okay.
been doing, so, yeah. Let's see, did you, just real quick, did you, mention any of this stuff to Steve?
Yeah, actually, yeah, let's see. You mentioned to me that you're getting comments made about, Los Gatos.
Yes.
And we've been monitoring Los Gatos.
Okay.
And perhaps it's time for us to kind of review the whole thing. And there's all kinds of thoughts about what, you know, we might want to do, make changes out there. So perhaps the committee could request that engineering look at the whole thing in its entirety, Los Gatos from Waco. And what kinds of improvements to that road
Safety improvements.
could be made. And yeah,
I
and
know,
all improvements.
right.
You know.
Right, it was just you know, some resident concerns in terms of the safety, obviously the well-being of the community and, what has been the history in terms of those projects?
Had a couple spills
Right,
out there. And that fortunately, no injuries, but the road was closed for
Right.
weeks and cost the district about $250,000 that we're trying to retrieve.
Right.
So there's just lots of issues, I think, that you're hearing. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
And
that was bad.
so
just seems like we're starting.
perhaps we could toss over to Mr. Hunt here to kind of head up, because there's a lot of slope issues.
Visual also, just
Yeah, visual, the
sightline.
the grading on the side of the roads, and grading both up and down.
Okay,
Right. And it's a kind of an district as a church, it's been there for a long time, but you probably wouldn't grade it. And nor would Dave recommend that.
Right.
It is there.
Right, it is, it really is.
So,
I haven't been over there for a long time, but yeah, so we still periodically hear this and lately a little bit more so. Okay, so, yes, Mr. Hunt, you can do that for us.
yeah, it can't really fix the steepness of it too much.
Yeah,
but improvements perhaps that would factor in.
Yeah.
And
One thing we looked at was a turnaround at the very top, because if trucks get to that point and then they now find out by our signage that there's 26% grade that they shouldn't be going down, they at least could make a turnaround, that there'd be a way for them to back up and jockey around on a series of wide turns, stuff like that. We looked at that possibility. We also looked at making the road one way, where nobody can come down the hill. Only thing you can do is go westerly or northerly, wherever you call that, and go uphill. But that would,
these are the things I think that,
Yeah.
need to be looked at
Sure.
and some report at some
Yeah,
point.
we'll combine
Yeah.
engineering and traffic and look
Is
at.
there enough right away to do something
Drainage
like this?
issues.
I think we might have the right of way. It's just, there's some grading that would have to take
Yeah.
place. And it's not gonna be a nice, beautiful cul-de-sac or anything
Yeah.
like that, but it's gonna be
Steep
just,
hills on
just
both sides.
right now when it's, hill on one side and a cliff on the other, but
One comment you heard was perhaps we use.
guardrail,
Guardrail.
guardrail.
and that gets expensive.
It's a big
If something
issue.
is-
Yeah, no, it's just an inquiry.
But I'm just saying
Yeah.
that if you take away the downhill issue, then you save on the cost of the guardrail.
Just going up that hill is scary.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I avoid it.
You gotta put
If I have to.
we had a classic car group wants to do a tour through Duluth and head on out to Glen Keith, and they were, he was mispronouncing it, whatever it was. And I said, you might want to rethink that, because I said, at the 26% grade, and I said, I'm in a Chevy Silverado with the truck, and I have to gun that thing as hard as I can to get it to creep up that hill.
Yeah.
I don't know if your little 1940s and 50s Model Ts are gonna
Yeah.
make it up that hill.
I just stick it in low gear and go.
With something as simple as a warning sign where you enter the road off of Sandia Creek. That you've got that kind of a grade ahead.
We've got it at Rancho, right where the Los Gatos is at the bottom of the hill. We've
Yeah.
got it up on Avocado Mesa coming back into Naha. Twice, so that they could turn, there's a nice place for them to turn around up there, that we put it in advance of that, but obviously people are trying to make up time and look, they just came up with 21% build down Sandia Creek. That grade coming back from Fallbrook is 21%, so 21, 26 all sounds the same to them, they're ready to get home.
Yeah. I was gonna say bottom line, ready to get somewhere. So.
The request for stop signs, I know it was on the screen, we're gonna take a little more time.
Yes,
Look at those. And try to come with criteria would be,
yes,
I guess, want to see data.
yes.
In this case, we've got the data, and the question is the criteria. So what do we use as
others that we've done. Right, right. Okay.
Long meeting, this one, this is the longest.
Well, a lot going on and a lot coming around the.
I don't see any rain in the forecast there tomorrow.
Sorry to be giving you all this new work that's gonna be coming up.
It was Jim Brady and. Yeah, Brian and Jim Brady, that's right. And it was Jim Brady who said, you know,
Yes,
he would set this whole meeting, like, 8:00 at night.
oh my
He
goodness.
said, anybody that looked at the weather forecast for tomorrow?
Did he really? Oh,
He did. We may have just talked for 2 hours. And he was in the next meeting, it's like, you're clairvoyant. How did you know? Everything we talked about in the last meeting, all in the minutes, throw that in the garbage can. But we're gonna slurry or restrive. Didn't come up again.
Today was a good discussion all around.
Yeah, no, very good, very productive. Anything further you would like to add?
You know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Okay, then if we've said everything that can possibly be said, this meeting is adjourned, everybody. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Ron, how was the sound on your end? You were the only outsider. Could you hear us pretty well?
Much better than the board meetings have been. It was crystal clear as far as the sound. Even the video looks even clearer. So I think this is definitely a step up.
Okay.
Last board meeting, you couldn't hear anything,
Ourselves
being honest.
to speak up in this room.
That's the key.
That's the key because we can't put amplified sound in here. Because there's no way of controlling.
And that was compounded when everybody had the mask on,
So
so
that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
like, and then you're sitting there on Zoom coming from